you ever. You crazy mother.
The East Roast Podcast.
Are you listening?
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the podcast. This is the East Roast Podcast. I'm Tony, and I'm here with my partner. You know who it is. As always, that's Steve Rinaldi.
What's up? How you doing?
Yeah, so anyway, I really excited, man. You know I'm excited because I've been talking about this guy for a couple of weeks now. This is a guy that I was a fan of, a guy that was from the town that I grew up in, one of the pioneers of MMA. This is Mr. Al Buck, the champ.
What up?
What's up?
Yeah, what's up, bro? What's up?
Good to be here.
Yeah. So, I mean, like anybody else, we all know some pretty amazing people, from our towns where, you just think to yourself, like, everybody should know this guy, but, he comes from an era where half of your career was illegal.
Yeah, it's kind of a dark part of my life, I guess you would say.
So he's from the, all through the 90s. He was, well, for a while there it was legal, and then it became illegal, and then it became legal again. But
it was all gray.
Yeah,
It was all gray.
So a lot of these UFC fans, you know what I mean? They're young. They're too young to realize about the sport that they love and what it really went through, to get to where it is. They don't realize that there was no way to do this except for in a back alley and and all that stuff like that. People think wow, man, like that's a new thing, this backyard fighting and stuff like that. But it's not new, is it?
Nah, not new at all.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the start of it was the creation of the monster, you know what I mean? It was just, pride and just,
wasn't a lot of money in it. A little bit of betting money.
A little bit of betting money. There is a little bit of betting money when you're, doing the backyard, back alley stuff, but, it was more for like just to prove a point type thing.
And what's the time period for that? What year was that a big thing?
I was in a situation in my life where I got pulled into it before it was a big thing, and even with the boxing part of things, time period, I would say 94.
Wow.
Yeah.
94, and I think I had some pro boxing matches back then, and then fighting wherever anybody challenged you to fight.
What was it that started you in mixed martial arts? I mean, because it was like something. I mean, you're one of the first guys. You're one of the guys that started out.
Yeah, a lot of people
where
don't
did you
know that.
find out about it?
So I got caught up in a boxing contract that I didn't like, and I don't know. I was at a point in my life where, I wanted to be a professional athlete. I was good at fighting because of probably where I came up,
Yeah.
And I got caught in this bad boxing contract and didn't really want to fulfill it, and didn't have the means to, go against it, like hire lawyers and things like that. I answered a Black Belt magazine ad.
Really?
So, Black Belt magazine was the thing back then.
Yeah.
Answered an ad in a Black Belt magazine and showed up in an arena and got in a cage and did a tournament fight.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty.
And in those days, you just were really boxing and jiu-jitsu, right? It wasn't like you had a lot of other disciplines, right? It's not like today where you have to learn.
For me, it was judo. I did judo from the time.
Oh, judo.
Yeah, judo I did from the time I was probably 11 years old.
Yeah.
And was actually did really well in competitions and things like that, and really well against a lot of great Olympic judo players and stuff like that in competitions. And then, judo don't pay no money. You know what I mean?
I know.
So that's what strung me towards boxing, So I was like, I want to fight for a living,
Boxing is such a tough gig, though, man. It's like, especially in the 90s, it was like notoriously corrupt, man. It's crazy.
Definitely.
They did catch people in contracts that you just couldn't get out of. And a lot of times they were pushing one guy.
Yeah.
And, they'd make sure that, that they put somebody where, they're going to go up, and you're going to like be, the guy that you have to go against this more polished fighter.
Yeah, I'm not one to be a political guy or anything like that, but it's all still corrupt.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
we could look at it and just be honest about all of it, and everybody's going to say this one has their chance, that one has their chance. It's not about all that.
At what point did you feel like you can earn from it, like from the get go? Or was it just so all over the place in that era? You really didn't know what was going to happen.
I was this dude, man. I was this dude. So like, I knew I had to work a regular job. You know what I mean? You're not gonna go around fighting people and making money. And I knew I had this.
Sounds like stand-up. Yeah. When you're first starting out, for sure.
It wasn't as.
Thanks. I needed to meet you.
It wasn't. It wasn't as politically sensitive. But But I felt like this dude, and I just love to do things. Like I always had this desire to have head-on competition.
Yeah.
Not even talking about violence. It just head-to-head. I wasn't a big team sports player, although I did a little football when I was in school and things like that. And I just felt like it was what I wanted to do, so I pursued it. So I was a different kind of fighter. I wasn't a fighter with good management back in the day. I was a fighter who showed up and fought anybody who said they wanted to fight for money.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much was the whole existence of my career. I could have been a coddled fighter. I probably could have been a pretty damn good boxer if I had the right management behind me and, got 50-0 before I fought anybody and had a damn good record. But I chose a different route.
Yeah.
Went a different way.
It's like, and there's so many, again, especially when you got in your MMA career, it wasn't even like anybody knew that there would ever be money in it. You know what I mean? It's like, so, you had to work a full, like today, guys are like training the entire, guys and girls training the entire time, 3-4 months at a time, and they're not doing a day job. I can't imagine you're doing a day job, you're slinging your work all week long, and then, hey, you know what? Saturday I got to fight. I mean, it's crazy. And you're going to fight a guy who's doing the same kind of shit, and it's like, it's wild, man. In some ways, I was a fan of MMA in those days. In some ways, I miss that. In some ways, because it's so polished these days. It's so polished that it's just a different game. It's a different fight.
It's a legit sport now.
Yeah,
it's not. It doesn't have the smoke-filled bar feel to it. You know what I mean? It doesn't have the the dirty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I remember when you, when you started your career, I remember like the whole town. I mean, everybody was like, holy shit. Again, because there was nothing to go off of. That was just fucking crazy. It's like, Al's going to go in to a cage. They're going to close it. And he's just going to friggin' try to rip some guy's head off, and that other guy's going to try to rip his head off. It was, in those days, it was like, I mean, it was just crazy. I can't imagine what it would have been like to get in there, but I know how we all felt as, fans and friends of yours. It just seemed like a crazy life choice.
It's funny you say that because, like, it strikes a memory, and, like, sometimes it takes things at my age to strike a memory. But I specifically remember it was, I think it was 1995, and there was one place that I thought was legal to fight that I don't even know if it was. But funny thing is, you say that, like, everybody, I remember the hype in the town because I got this fight, and it was a tournament cage style. You fight 2, 3, 4 people, however long the tournament clip lasted. But it was funny, man, because the dude offered me some money on ticket sales, like 3.5 hours away, almost 4 hours away. And I remember I sold like 458 tickets to that fight.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you talk about like those eras where the smoky feel and the backroom feel, like that era came and went. Like I was a big professional wrestling fan, and I grew up a couple blocks from the ECW arena.
Yeah, it's a great place.
And nobody really became a millionaire working for ECW, but so many professional wrestlers got their voice and their start in that bingo hall.
And for you,
and they were hungry. You know, it's like,
and for you,
think about how you paved the way for these young UFC fighters coming up. People like you. It's amazing.
You know, I never carry that weight. Like, I don't want to put that out there. Like, you know, it could have happened with or without me. I like to think that, you know, it evolved from something that I got into at the start and things like that. A lot of people on the national level won't know me, but a lot of people who became famous because of it know my name.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it's funny, back to the ECW arena, like, you know, what are you going to remember the most? You're going to remember watching, you know, a big WWF or WWE event on pay-per-view, or are you going to remember going to that ECW arena on Saturdays and watching them matches, you know?
Bro, that's just like, you're talking to the guy that lived. That was my whole youth.
Yeah.
Like, I one of my best friends, Joe Sandifer, his father was security guard.
There you go.
At the arena.
There you go.
So, you know, people would line up for hours on hours just to get in there, pregame Philly style, drink it all day, approach it like an Eagles game or a Phillies game.
And the feel in that place.
And we would be like these 11, 12-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And my mother would drive us over 6:30. We'd walk right past where they were getting changed for the
right.
It was just like, looking back now, I'm like, oh my God, what an awesome time that was.
Exactly.
In history.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what they did for the sport.
Yep.
Same to be said for somebody like you. You probably have so many stories, like traveling the road and
it's
how
crazy.
far did it take you?
Yeah, I got so many like good memories. Like, I don't talk about myself a lot because like my shit sounds like bullshit.
Yeah.
All my stories sound like I watched a movie and, you know, was
Well,
part
that's one of the
movie.
things that we were talking about before you came on today. Yesterday we were talking, and some of the things that you feel like at our age we think to ourselves, like, you know, nobody will believe us. Now you can YouTube it and you say like, oh yeah, that shit really happened. It's like, you know, just nobody was filming you doing it.
Some of it didn't happen because they didn't have cell phones that would record back in the day. You know what I mean? But, you know, like, yeah, I got so many, like, and I got great friends today that was road dogs with me back then. Like, yeah, you want to take a trip and go watch a fight?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, I've actually fought in Kalamazoo, Michigan. You know,
Yeah,
so, like,
yeah.
I didn't even think fucking Kalamazoo was a place until they said you want to come out here. You know, and,
they're like, there's a check here for you. They're like, how do I get there?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's crazy, man. You fought for, you know, you fought for a living. You know what I mean? Where you didn't fight for fame. You didn't fight for, you know, to show. You fought for a living. You fought for a living. I mean, it's like today, that's something that's lost. I mean, there's some of that still. But I mean, until you, like, if you haven't experienced something before it was big, right? You really don't know it. You don't know what it was. You know, everybody thinks in terms of the UFC. They think about everything. UFC did start something, you know, but it took, I don't know, what was it, like almost 2 decades before it was really a sport. So in those 2 decades, there's guys like Al. There's all these guys that went out there and they pioneered the sport. And they did it just to beat the hell out of somebody and prove that you were good enough to do it. And thankfully you got paid for it.
Yeah.
Half the time it was illegal, you know.
Yeah, shit. We was worried about getting arrested afterwards.
Roll out.
We wasn't signing no autographs. We was running from cops. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So where's the craziest place you ever fought?
I would have to say because of they was all crazy in the beginning there. They had the tension. Like I said, out in Kalamazoo and things like that, fought for a guy named Monty Cox, and he was kind of honing in on the professional aspect of it.
Yeah.
He actually had a pay-per-view event. I forget what the hell it was. He's had a few pay-per-view events that before UFC actually found a way to take it all over and do what they did with it. That he was on his shows were on there a couple of times, and that was still crazy out there. But I would say as far as what you would semi think was legal, I would think the Fearless Fighting Championship was probably the craziest place I ever went.
Yeah.
Actually, the night ended in a riot.
With the fighters or
With
people?
everybody.
With everybody.
The whole damn place. There was probably.
You imagine if they did have camera phones then?
There was probably honestly, like I said, I sold 450 tickets. It was a big event. It led up to me winning a title in the tournament thing, and wow, I think there probably had to be 2,000 people there.
Yeah, man.
1,500 people, and it ended up just the whole place was
That's
a
gonna be
riot.
crazy.
We was all getting our shit and heading for the car. Like, yeah.
I remember the night you won the CFFC, and a lot of people actually, I say the CFFC, and a lot of people know the CFFC now. It's like one of the top feeder companies for the UFC. But you were the first, right? Weren't you the first champ for your weight class?
I believe I was one of the first.
Yeah. I feel like you were the first, man. I looked it up. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think you were the first.
I might have been.
Yeah. You don't see that?
I don't like it.
See
You
how
know what
humble
I mean?
these guys are.
Nah, we're just dumb.
Yeah. But I remember, I was in Atlantic City that night, and I ran into some friends, and I'm like, wow, man, that's weird. I ran into one set of friends, and I run into another set of friends. We're out there on the boardwalk, and I'm like, it's weird. I keep running into the same, to all my friends. And then another set of friends, and you know what they say? They say, I said, what are you guys doing here? I said, I just ran into this one. I ran into that. They're like, oh, Alfie's fighting tonight. I said, what do you mean he's fighting tonight? He's fighting tonight. So I didn't get a ticket to that, but you won that. And that's the night you got your belt, man. Yeah. You had a lot of support, man. I mean, Atlantic City was full of kids from our town.
I adore, love, and respect all the people that came out and supported me. I mean, all of them guys, all of you guys, you guys paid my bills. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I really appreciate that, and I'm, no matter what. So I wasn't the guy to, like I said, to have the coddle career. So no matter what fight I picked, I was glad everybody came out and supported me, and I swung for the fences every time.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's funny you just said that you swung for fences every time, because we also were talking about that. All of us were talking about, a lot of the injuries now, right? The brain injuries, and you think to yourself, like, so many fighters now, are learning, defense. They're learning things to keep themselves healthy. So a couple of the football players, the wrestlers, we're all wrestling fans, and a couple of the and not so much in MMA, right? It hasn't really happened in MMA.
You know what? I don't know that it hasn't happened. I just don't know that.
Maybe it's because it's so young.
Yeah, as public as.
But the reason I bring that up is because you were saying that, more or less you guys were trying to knock each other's heads off, and knowing what you know now, would that have changed the way you fought, or would you have maybe learned some more things, or does it ever worry about these young guys who are just trying to take each other's heads off today?
I worry about. I was a different kind of fighter, like I did have a bit of boxing background and things like that, so I typically.
So defense was something that you knew.
Yeah. But it wasn't something that I searched out just because I was doing MMA. It was something I knew coming into it. My defense for jiu-jitsu and wrestling sucks. So you know what I mean? Like that's
do you feel like especially in those days, a lot of the young guys, they weren't learning defense, right? They didn't have, but I think boxing coaches came into the game of MMA fairly recently, right?
Yeah, since it's been evolving into like that professional sport. I mean, shit. When we first started, you was allowed to break fingers and toes and pull hair out of people's head. You know what I mean? Like, how do you defend that? So, I see it evolving, and I see I don't know if the learning. I would guess it would, because it wouldn't evolve if it wasn't. So I see people going that route, on getting knowledge on the whole thing as a whole beast. But
I feel like the current fan is used to, or they're starting to appreciate guys who don't get hit. That other part of fighting where, it's on the ground, or it's, submissions and things like that. People are starting to realize, this is just as exciting as a knockout or anything like that. I mean, I love a good submission win. You know what I mean? It's less brutal, right? The sport is definitely less brutal, wouldn't you think?
Yeah. I got a rebuttal for what you just said. So
okay, let's hear it.
The people who didn't and don't and still don't. I always prided myself to be the exciting fighter. I wanted to knock people. I wanted to knock your fucking head off. Like, that was the most biggest thing, is a knockout. I was that fighter. I was a striker. I was the guy who wanted to do that. The people, and I've never been knocked out in my life, like with a punch or a kick. I've been choked out and things like that. So the people who don't respect the fighter who takes you down and wears you out and chokes you out or arm bars you are the people who's never had that done to them.
Yeah.
They don't respect it because, it seems slow and meticulous, and they don't understand what's happening.
It's the only fighter that's ever beaten you. It's a fighter that, and again, submissions were kind of a new thing back then too. It's like, what the frig is this guy doing to me? You don't even know what's happening. It's like, he was a pro wrestler too.
Well, I tried.
Yeah.
When you say you tried, how long?
Me and my buddy, actually, one of the road dogs we was talking about, we was always wrestling fans when we were younger, and it was in between retiring as an MMA fighter and coming back as an MMA fighter and things like that. We got hooked up, started training locally with some wrestling coach, and kind of enjoyed the whole thing of it. And it's funny, I sent a video out to, I believe it was WWF at the time. They had like this reality show they was trying to do. And it was Tough Enough. And I sent a video out, and I ended up being like the last 100 people before I actually got up to New York and all that. And Taz was one of the judges, and I forget the other ones. But I was sick as fuck that day. And they had me jumping around, and pretty much all I did was trip all day. I got in a ring, and it was like a trampoline. I was like, but I made the, like, I guess it was the last 100 cut out of like 10,000 people who tried out for it. So, but that was about as far as my wrestling career got.
Wow.
Yeah. You were a huge wrestling fan. You just met your what was that? A couple of months ago, you met. What's his name?
I met him before. I used to like. I was such a diehard wrestling fan. I would go to like the airports and their hotels and get autographs when I was a young kid.
That's cool.
But I worked with Mick Foley.
Oh yeah, he's an awesome dude.
There's a lot of professional wrestlers. What they're doing now is they're becoming storytellers. So they're going to comedy clubs around the country.
Oh, cool.
So I got to work with my favorite professional wrestler. I opened up and did 10 minutes for him.
That's awesome.
In front of a bunch of crazy
You want to talk
wrestlers.
about a dude putting his body on a line.
Oh, my God.
I've been a fan of him forever. Like, yeah.
We talked about Mick a couple of weeks ago, and I feel like Mick is the kind of guy that, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like he willed himself into the career that he wanted to be.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't have the body. He didn't have the look. I mean, really think about it. That was in the era of these monster guys, right? And everybody was on steroids and shit. And then you got, Mick, who just was a guy who will put his body on the line. He didn't look like a great, like he was.
I tell you what, I don't think anybody's ever put their body on the line like him.
Yeah,
he was an impressive. The shit he put his body
he's
through.
He's quoted for saying that he didn't have the look, he didn't have the size. He had to find a way to get noticed. So he was nice to everybody, and he took a lot of gambles.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's paying for it a little bit now.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Probably hard to get out of bed.
No doubt. Yeah.
Man,
Yeah, I
they
didn't-
even lost his ear, man. That's crazy. He lost his ear in the ring.
Yeah, that was unintentional, but
No, yeah, he
Japan.
did like I don't know, like what did he do? Like put his head? He intentionally put his head in between the
Whip
ropes,
against
right?
Vader, and it
Yeah.
ripped off in
And
Japan.
flipped, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he was getting choked, and the only way he can get out is like to pull him out. And it ripped his
Yeah.
freaking
That
ear
story's
off.
in his
That's
book.
crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy.
Oh my god.
That's crazy. Phew, yeah, he put himself on the line, I'll tell
doubt.
you. Yeah.
Wrestling might be scripted, but it's sure as hell ain't fake.
No. No. I mean, it's an art. It's a business, and the people who make it to the top of that business are the best at that art, and you can't argue that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's they're better ass than we'll ever be trying it. You know?
Yeah. Mick, how's he doing? I mean, you were saying that he.
I didn't talk to him much,
Yeah.
but he was very nice to me and gave me
It's
some great
amazing
advice,
how again we're talking about like with professional wrestling. That is the thing that it's crazy how all these other sports, people make it out of it and they're having a life and all. I don't know what it is about professional wrestling, man, but it just creates guys who just have destroyed themselves. There's so many of them. And it's like, you think to yourself, like, what in the world is going on there? You know what I mean? It's like some of them, is it the steroids they were taking in that era? Is it the injuries they were dealing with? Or what is it? I mean,
I think it's in my opinion, on my view of it, I think it's to deal with the devil you make to do what you want to do.
every night.
Everybody pays a consequence for what they chose to do. Whether it be, I didn't chase my dream. Like as an athlete, you accept a responsibility. You know what I mean? And I didn't know
There's a price to pay.
There's a price to pay. I didn't know I'd feel the way I feel at 49 years old. Like I kind of thought I would.
Yeah.
But until you're living it, you don't know the price you're paying.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah, I've seen a podcast with it's crazy, like with Bill Burr and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and me being a stand-up and being a professional wrestling fan, I couldn't believe the similarities on two completely different life choices.
Right.
Stone Cold talking about how he was wrestling in gyms in front of 14 people.
Right.
Giving it his all, falling on concrete, getting it for $40, getting in a car, driving 5 hours, eating canned tuna and spigot water.
Yeah.
And Bill Burr doing nooners in like Indiana. A nooner is like broad daylight, like in front of 10 people.
Right.
Yeah, the
And then
beginning
jumping-
of comedy
like-
and the beginning of wrestling, yeah.
Even what he was doing when he talks about the beginning of UFC, like that's why I was asking these questions with how you're saying, you're driving in the middle of nowhere and doing stuff in places that you never thought would imagine, but you're doing what you got to do.
Right.
A lot of times you're just thrown into it and you don't know where you're going. I've performed in buffet lines.
Yeah.
I had to get on stage.
Yeah.
There's nobody saying, "Oh, we have," especially the first couple of years, if someone's like, "Oh, we got this comedy club. You want to perform Saturday night for an open for Steve Harvey?" Like, just using it as an example,
Right.
But those types of situations don't happen in the beginning. Seems to be said for you.
You know what?
You know?
I think it's just. I think it's why we're sitting here right now. It's
Right.
just your passion. It's
Very
your dream.
like-minded people.
It's just an interest, like almost a life choice. I think it's just what time and pieces of yourself you're willing to give to take a chance to make something happen.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, like, I honestly, think about it, and Tony's asked me, like Tony struck up the thought a few times since talking in the last couple of weeks, and I think about it, and I wouldn't change anything. You know, what I did and what I pay now, you know, what you know, my fiance has to sleep with me moaning and groaning, you know, getting out of bed on my knees in the morning and things like that, you know, I wouldn't change it. You know what I mean? It raised my kids. It paid my bills. It was cool as fuck for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know.
You're going to pay the price. It's so true what you said with anything you do.
I would have never met a lot of you people.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
Like,
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan did a podcast recently, and he said how it takes him an hour and a half to get out of bed.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know? But he's like, dude, I was the biggest.
Yeah.
Look at the life you
He's
live.
like,
Yeah.
the stories I have.
Right.
He's like, I wouldn't change it for nothing. He's like, I
Exactly.
don't care if it's going to take me 3 hours to get out of bed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And look at the bills it paid for him.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you don't want to talk about money and things like that. Like, that's the reason, like, because, you know, an artist is just supposed to be passionate and they're not after money. But, you know, I would have took all the money and none of the fame if I knew what I was getting into. Now, you know?
Yeah, I don't blame you there, man. I would have done the same thing, you know. Screw artistry, you know. I just want to get out there. Like, pay me if I'm going to go out there and you know, and especially if you win, right? Pay me good.
Yeah.
You got a new girlfriend, right? It's been like a year or two. You guys been dating, right?
Yeah.
So she's a little bit of a local hero too, man. You know,
yeah.
she's got that.
Oh yeah, she's killing it. She's a front for a band called Secret Sauce. Man, they play all summer long, all over the place, and got a big following. And I have a lot of fun, like being a groupie and shit.
Yeah. Oh, you get to be. Yeah. See,
Yeah.
you know, you used to have groupies, and now you are a groupie.
Yeah, I love being on
Be
that.
a hype man or a comedian. Though.
Yeah.
I could use all the work I can get.
There we go. We'll try to set something up.
I caught one of her shows. She's got a great band, man. It's the kind of band that it covers all different genres, right? It's not like, you know, one style. You know, it fits, you know, whatever you're into, they play a little bit of it. So
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, they play everything from like a lot of eras. Like it's a good night to go out and just relax.
Yeah.
And, you know, like they always have a good crowd,
Yeah.
man. I always have a smile on my face when I go watch them play.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, we were talking earlier, so I already know about the band. You know, obviously, you know, she's a great, you know, the whole band is great. But in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to go out. Maybe Steve Rinaldi's going to go out and go see some Secret Sauce. I've seen a little bit of their stuff. I'm ready to go see them again, man. I need to get out with my wife.
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
We've been
I
scooped in
think
the house.
we got to like work things out so we can go up and catch some comedy too, you know.
Or
Yeah,
maybe
man.
you could throw me up on stage before she performs.
Hey, we
right.
could do
That'd
that.
be perfect.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey.
This guy, Steve Rinaldi's in Atlantic City every week, man. Anyway, yeah. Well, what do you think, man? We got to get to bed. It's getting late. See, these people, they're going to be watching this at 5 o'clock. But you know what? Yeah, it's like what? Late. Yeah. So.
Hey, I appreciate you guys
man.
hanging out, talking
Yeah.
with me, man. I
Looking
like
forward
it.
to the next time.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I listen. I got to say this, you know, before we hang this up, man. You know, I've been a real fan of your career.
I appreciate
you know,
it.
I think you're somebody that a lot of people should know. I know, you know, what you brought to the MMA world, and guys like you should be always celebrated. You know, so. You know, that's what we do here, right?
No
You
doubt.
know?
I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. And I've always, you know, aside from, you know, putting food on the table, I always did it for you guys,
Yeah,
the
man.
fans. You know what I mean? I never took an easy fight. I never took a fight that I wasn't going to take a risk in, and it was, you know, it was more performing for me than it was. It was as much performing as it was, you know, fighting. So never wanted anybody to be bored coming to see me.
Well, it definitely wasn't boring. All right, so that's it, man. We got another one in there.
Oh, man.
That's East Roast Podcast. We got
The
my boy Al Buck,
Podcast.
my boy Steve Rinaldi. We'll catch you next time.
Crazy mother. Damn.